Hello, welcome in or welcome back to my channel. My name is Deb from DG Reads and it's time for Summerween. Summerween is a fantastic yearly readathon hosted by Gabby at Gabby Reads, and this is year number, I don't even know at this point, of me participating. I have been looking forward to this because last year's Summerween TBR was absolutely a fantastic time for me, so I'm hoping to duplicate that energy again this year. This year's going to be a little more chaotic because I'm going on vacation before Summerween is over, and that means I need to hurry up and get all of this done if I want to make content out of it to be able to share with you, and that means I'm fudging the dates a little bit. It is currently Thursday afternoon. I got off work a little bit early and we're heading into a 3-day weekend. The readathon officially starts on Saturday, I believe, but I decided I'm going to try to speedrun all of the prompts, one book per prompt, maybe two, and see if I can do it in the space of a long weekend. So that will get me done, hopefully in time to edit and do everything to have this ready to go before I hop on a plane on Thursday. The other chaos element is that I haven't started packing yet and I need to do that. And I didn't do so great at picking out books that have audio in every case. So we're going to see how this works. I do have a lot of plans to be out of the house tomorrow. I am spending time with my dad in the morning, going to a friend's house in the afternoon for a barbecue, and then my plan is to get home before dark because my neighborhood goes absolutely wild with the fireworks, and Kylie is not a fan, so they've already been doing some here and there the last few nights, and she's been very clingy, so I will definitely get home before those go off. But I also know I won't be able to do any filming tomorrow night because it's going to be loud, and they generally keep going well past midnight. So in any case, let's look at what my TBR looks like. I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to all of it, and we shall see how it all goes. I don't have these necessarily in the same prompt order as on the announcement, but I do know which book goes with which prompt, so that's something, right? For the prompt to read a book at night or in the dark, I have Mask of Flies by Matthew Lyons. This is one that has been on my TBR for quite a while. It's actually one of the few remaining prompts that I have to complete the blackout of my horror bingo TBR. And I have both the ebook and the audiobook for this one, so it's definitely one I can read at night when it's dark. Maybe throw on a candle, hang out with Kylie, read on the couch, give myself a relaxing evening at some point, or a scary evening. I'm not sure how this book is going to go. The blurb on this one says it is a pulse-pounding crime horror epic about a criminal on the run, the deadly family secrets she unearths along the way, and the sinister monster from her past that has gotten a taste for her blood and won't sleep until she's dead. There's talking here about a partner of hers on some sort of criminal heist, and this person dies, but then a monster shows up wearing his face. I don't know much about this one, but it does sound intriguing, and the fly cover on there definitely disturbing. For the easiest prompt, which is just to read a horror or thriller book, I'm going to pull one from my July TBR, and that is The Ghostwriter by Julie Clark. This one starts, I believe, in 1975. We have Vincent, who is in a house with two other siblings, I think they are, or at least two other teenagers, and there's a fire and he's the only one who survives. Many people accuse him of killing them. There's a lot of rumors surrounding him, and then he becomes a horror author, which just fans the flames. He has a daughter who is a ghostwriter, and he winds up asking her to ghostwrite his own story where he supposedly is going to now be telling the truth about what happened. So this is one I'm super excited for. I'm going to be buddy reading this with a friend, and it's going to be a good time. I'm sure of it. For a book with a sky or night sky on the cover, I have You Belong Here by Megan Miranda. This is a gifted copy I received from Simon & Schuster. This one's coming out on July 29th. I also have the audiobook from Simon Audio. I have really enjoyed quite a few of Megan Miranda's books in the past. They're not all wins, but I'm excited for this one, and it was perfect timing to get this on here. We have a woman who comes from a small town. Her parents taught at the school there, and she always thought that's where she would go to college, but then there was some sort of tragedy in her senior year that left 2 people dead and her roommate on the run, and now somehow things are coming full circle. She's kept her distance, but now her daughter, I believe, is going to college, and somehow this is all going to come back around. For a book that's been on your TBR for at least a year, I have Survivor Song by Paul Tremblay. This is one that's been on my list for quite a while. I actually have a couple Paul Tremblay books on my TBR that I need to get to, and this one just sounds so up my alley. There's a virus. It spreads by saliva, and people bite to infect each other. It sounds very zombie coded, and I'm intrigued. The part that has me a little worried is we have a woman who is about to give birth birth and she's reaching out for help. Her husband's been killed. I don't necessarily love motherhood and pregnancy in horror, but I'm willing to give it a shot with Paul Tremblay. And I've had some successes from him, some less so we are hoping for good things. And then the final prompt is to read a novella or an audiobook or a graphic novel or a manga, something in a different format basically. And for me, audiobook is not a different format, so I kind of ruled that one out, but I wasn't sure which direction to go beyond that. So the other readathon I'm currently participating in is the Tarot Readathon, which I will also link down below, from Deja and Noelle. And this is a very casual readathon. You pick cards, they have prompts, you read the book, you submit for your team. And I am on Team Swords. And this one, I am kind of pulling 3 cards at a time, and then as I finish books, I pull a new one. So I kind of thought, well, maybe I'll pull my next cards and see if that guides me which direction I should head for this final prompt. And it turns out it guided me in 2 different directions. This is where we might wind up reading 2 books instead of 1 for this particular prompt. Yesterday, when I was pulling my card, I got the Emperor, and the prompt for this one is to read a 1-word title. And from my TBR this month, I have Antenora by Dory Lumpkin. This is a Twisted Retreat edition, and I know very much nothing about it. It says on the back, what really happened to Nora Willett, the religious community of Bethel doesn't know. They always said she was trouble. Later they said she was possessed. Maybe she lost her mind, killing 3 people and injuring many others. I really don't know anything about it, but it is indeed a novella. It looks like it'll be a quick read. There is no audiobook for it. I don't have it on Kindle, so we'll see if I get to it and have time to sit down and read. And then today I needed to pull 1 more card, and that wound up being the Star, and the prompt for that is to read a graphic novel or a manga. So I need to read one of those to be able to submit it for that readathon, so might as well make it spooky. So I have Tombs by Junji Ito. This is a manga. It's a story collection, and that might be fun to pick up this weekend just because I can kind of pick it up, read 1 story, put it down, kind of spread it out a little that way. And I really like Junji Ito's manga in general and the horror nature of it, so this is another solid possibility. So this is my weekend TBR. It's a long weekend. It's also a long TBR, considering that at least 3 of them do not have audiobooks, and I have a lot I need to get done this weekend. But I am really excited for all of these. They're all books I'm looking forward to starting. I'm not even sure exactly where I'm going to kick things off. I think I might actually pick up The Ghostwriter first because I don't have audio for that one, so I want to see if it's one that I'm going to be able to just fly through or what's going to go on with it. And it's not dark enough to read my Reading in the Dark book yet. So that's the current thinking. With all honesty, by the time I come back to you, things may have changed. But we will go ahead, jump into the reading. Kylie's looking like she's ready to sit in my lap. I'm ready for a cold drink and to start reading. My reading assistant is really helping out a lot with this whole Reading in the Dark thing. Good thing she's cute, even if you can't see it in this particular moment. Good morning. It is now the 4th. Kylie's being shy at the moment, but I had to bring her because she needs to admit that if I struggle to actually finish this whole speedrun process, I'm gonna blame her. Yeah, she was being very adorable last night, a little bit snuggly, extra clingy, which is not shocking because there were some fireworks going off and so forth. But for some reason, at like 1 in the morning, after I'd already crashed out and gone to sleep, she decided she needed to be really, really close to me. And I mean, she could have been crawling into my chest and not been close enough because she decided she needed to be right in my face. She was panting. She seemed to be anxious. And then she decided she needed to share my pillow, meaning her entire body would go on my pillow along with my head. So she was basically sleeping on my head. It was a time. It took probably close to an hour of trying to reconfigure her and move her to different positions before I finally got up for a little while, got her some colder water, and moved everything around, and she finally went to sleep without, panting in my face anymore. So it was a night. I'm dragging a bit this morning, and I've got a lot to, go out and do, but at least it's me being out inactive, and that should help. So now she's all calm this morning and sleepy and ready to go back and nap. But I have some reading to do and some reading updates to give you. So let's put the little girl down. Yeah. Are you crazy? Yeah, yes you are. Yes you are. So before my sleep was interrupted in a cute but still rude way, I did a lot of reading last night, and then I let myself get distracted for a little bit. But I did make it about halfway or close to halfway in here. I made it to page 140 in The Ghostwriter. And so far I'm liking this one. I'm not obsessed. It's not can't put it down type of reading for me, but I don't have an audiobook for this one, and I made it 140 pages in an evening, so that's a good sign. Like I said, we're following this ghostwriter, Olivia, and she has been contracted to write her father's memoir. She is the only one in this situation who knows that she is his daughter. His publisher, his editor, her agent, none of them know why he insisted that she be the one to write this with him. She shows up and finds out that things aren't exactly stable with her father. Let's put it that way. There are some reveals about what's going on with him, and the job, turns out, is going to be a lot harder. He doesn't want anyone to know this book is being written. He wants to kind of control and limit how much access she has to things. There are external forces that are kind of limiting things as well. And I am intrigued. I think I might have said there was a fire. There wasn't a fire. It was just that his sister and his brother were killed. And that's where the mystery lies. I think the flames on the cover maybe got mixed up in my head. I had been thinking there was a fire that he was the only survivor of. But he has an alibi, supposedly wasn't home when these killings happened, and that is how he wound up being the only sibling to survive. I really like the way the book started. We get a foreword at the beginning, which is basically Olivia's foreword for the memoir. And it's written like she is presenting this book. And she talks about her history with this, the fact that kids, when she was growing up, knew who she was and who her father was and what he had supposedly done. And it finishes with kind of her name, including his last name, and the date that she finished writing the book. The anniversary of the death is coming up, June 13th, and that is kind of spurning some of these memories to come up, and her interest in this story. She and him have been estranged, but she's in a desperate situation. She got herself canceled by calling out a very popular author kind of publicly, and he took her down. She owes him money. She owes her publisher money. There's just a lot of things that are pressuring her to where she has to take this job. So I'm finding it interesting. I don't necessarily know how I feel about the characters yet. There's a lot of questions of who's trustworthy and not. And there are some things where she's not being honest with people in her life. Her father is most likely not being honest about things either. We get these flashback chapters in here as well, where things that he's telling her play out a little bit differently. So that's really interesting to kind of see those differences also. So I'm eager to continue on in this one. But when it got dark last night, after I had had dinner, I decided to go ahead and switch over to Mask of Flies by Matthew Lyons, because this is my read after dark book. And I put it on audio for a while. I put it on ebook for a while, although as you saw, Kylie was being a little bit chaotic with me trying to ebook in the dark. So it was a challenge. And I wound up making it halfway, or actually not halfway, about 40% of the way into this one as well. So since I'm putting it down, since it's now light out in the morning, I figured I'd provide you with an update. Anne and friends are attempting a bank heist, and it does not go well. Things go very quickly awry. She winds up having to flee with one of her partners who has been injured, and with the cop they took hostage, and they go to her family's cabin. She hasn't been there in a while. It's kind of a last resort type of place to go, but they wind up going there. Her partner dies. He gets buried or put away. I don't know exactly. I don't remember exactly what they did with him. But then things start going weird, and him shows back up at the door. And she can tell it's not him. She knows for one thing that he's dead. Also, he's not quite right. He doesn't look alive. There's something creepy going on. There's these things that keep coming after them. This results in the cop kind of figuring out there's more here at stake than this bank heist, and we wind up with him and her on the run, and it goes from there. There's a lot happening in here. There's definitely some gory scenes. There is one in particular where the cop is trying to get out of a situation that had me absolutely cringing, and I was driving at the time and couldn't fully focus, so that was interesting. But I would say overall I'm not 100% engaged in this story. The things that are happening in here, we know from the synopsis that it's tied somehow to Anne's past or her family. The fact that they're at this cabin is not a coincidence when things start going really strangely. So I am very intrigued to kind of get answers further into this, so I look forward to picking it back up. I'm hoping maybe I could finish it up tonight while I'm sitting and trying to ignore all the fireworks, but we will see with that. So So I think my priority this morning is going to be making coffee, and at least 1 cup. And then I think I will pick back up a ghostwriter most likely, but that remains to be seen. It's about 8 a.m. now. It's a little later than maybe I'd planned to get up if Kylie hadn't woke me up in the middle of the night and then I hadn't had trouble falling back asleep. But I should have a good hour or two probably before I have to get out the door and start my day. So I will hopefully get a little bit of reading done before I go. It's now a little after 10. I'm about to head out for the day, but I wanted to check in because I have finally finished my first book. I say finally as if it's even been 24 hours, but it felt like I was splitting my time between so many books I would never finish anything. But I did wind up picking up Antinora, and I started this a little bit last night. I didn't do a midway check-in just because it's so gosh darn short. It's about 114 pages. And overall, I liked this one. I wasn't obsessed with it or finding it hard to put down. We are following in the head of Abigail, who is this girl Nora's best friend. Nora is the one that this very conservative, very religious town of Bethel has deemed either possessed or a witch or insane or who knows what's going on in here. This is a very conservative, very closed town. You have to believe in God. You have to believe in the type of God who judges whether your faith is solid or not by whether you get bit by a snake. Hence all the snake imagery on the original cover for this one and even on this one as well. And the snake, I don't know how well it'll show up, but it is a snake foiled edge on there. Nora's the girl who's always been a little bit different. She's not a believer, but there's also something going on with her. From Abigail's eyes, we know things aren't quite right with Nora. There's things about her that aren't necessarily normal. And the book is written in a way that Abigail's almost being interviewed and reporting events that have happened. There's an ominous note to it that there's something that has happened and the reader doesn't quite know it. It's mostly written in narrative, but the narrator breaks that occasionally to refer to you. You know what happened next. You probably already heard about this, those type of comments. It doesn't happen super often, so if that's the type of thing that annoys you in a book, I wouldn't say it's overly done here, but you definitely have the idea that Abigail's made it out of something Nora maybe hasn't, and then we have this potential outside force coming in that she's talking to, or not force, but outside entity, people, whatever. There is a little bit of a sense of the wider world because she says at one point about turning 18 is so important because that's the age they can get married, and that it used to be younger, but the government, the outside forces, gave them a hard time about that, and they settled on 18 being when girls can get married. It's definitely full of trigger warnings for abuse, for endangerment of minors. There's a lot of homophobia in the society, and we have this relationship between Nora and Abigail that has hints of being something more than friendship. So there's a lot going on in here. I think it was well done. I think the author did a good job keeping it to a length that was manageable. It got a little bit tiresome in a few places, but it definitely surprised me with some of the twists and turns that it wound up taking. I didn't quite expect it to go as dark as it did. And it's also the type of book that's not going to answer all the questions by the end. So you need to kind of accept that going into it. So anyway, this is my first book done. Excited for that. And since I am going to be leaving the house, I do need to listen to an audiobook. And since it is 10 a.m., it is not nighttime, so I can't continue on with my read at night book. So I think I'm going to put on the audiobook for You Belong Here by Megan Miranda. Don't really know too much about this one going into it, other than potentially school setting and family trauma, maybe. I don't know. But I do have the gifted audiobook from Simon Audio, so this is going to be my driving around book for today, and we shall see how that goes. Plan tonight is probably still to continue Mask of Flies, just because I'm going to be kind of locked on the couch with Kylie, as anxious as she was last night for some unexplainable reason. I suspect with all the fireworks tonight, she's going to need a lot of lap time. So that's the plan for the day. I'm heading to my dad's house, heading to a barbecue, and we'll be back here tonight. Whether I have any updates for you tonight, questionable with the noise level, so probably I will see you in the morning. Did you survive all the craziness last night? Yeah, because you're a brave girl? Yes, you are. Very brave. You were very brave. Yes, you were. You were very brave. Say hi to the peoples. Hi, peoples. Everyone can boop your nose. Happy Saturday. Summerween is officially started now, and I feel like I haven't made that big a dent in my TBR yet, so we're doing okay. I overestimated my ability to read last night with the fireworks going off. They were going off pretty steadily from before it got dark, and at 1 a.m. they were waking me up because they were so bright outside. So it's been a little bit of a slow start to the morning today, but I did make a little bit of progress. I'm about 3/4 of the way through Mask of Flies. Not a lot of thoughts on this one. It's just kind of been okay so far. So I'm going to save my thoughts for the ending and go from there. Hopefully tonight, with less distractions outside, I can really lock in for the last quarter and really kind of get in the atmosphere of reading in the dark and enjoying. I did make it 45% of the way into You Belong Here by Megan Miranda. And this one also so far is kind of fitting in the it's okay category. It's definitely not fully hooked me in. We are following a woman, and when she was a senior in college, there was a fire that was generated that killed 2 people, and her roommate was accused of it, went missing, was never seen again, and she was asked to leave school, and she wound up going to a sister school and graduating from there, and really hasn't ever returned to her hometown. Her parents, when she was there, were professors at this college. They still live right next door, and she's a little bit surprised to learn that her daughter has applied to go to school at this college and has been accepted, and that's where she's going. So as the book opens, our main character is taking her daughter to this college. This is, of course, bringing up a lot of memories for her, and there's a lot of traditions with the college between the people who grew up locally, which she was always kind of a combination of someone who grew up locally, but also someone who was a college student here, which is very rare. Very few people who grow up locally go to this school. But there's traditions about the first kind of wind howling of the year and people going out in the woods and doing things. And it's been a little bit on the vague side. We don't have full details, but certainly there seems to be maybe secrets that she knows about what happened that night long ago, even though she's not really telling us or telling the authorities. I am very curious to see where this is going to wind up. We've got her daughter attending this new school. She heads home, but she gets a call from her daughter's phone, but there's nobody on the line, and then she can't reach her daughter. And that's kind of the panic of the situation. She's back. She's trying to find her daughter. And at the 45% mark, that's basically what we've gotten to. Her parents are in Peru. They've taken off. There's no one really else in town. She's kind of reconnecting with a few people to maybe try to help her out. And that's where we are. It's not the most engaging, but in some ways, it wasn't bad for the fact that I mostly used this for driving around yesterday and a little bit of audiobooking while I was trying to drown out the fireworks. So that's where we're at with that. So we're making progress. I just feel like since all I've finished is the one novella, I'm not getting that far, but that's okay. I think we're going to get some good reading in today. I've started my packing journey for Zanzibar. I've gotten a whole way of pulling out my suitcase, but I do need to do some laundry so I can actually pack some clothing. So that's the first objective this morning, is coffee and starting the laundry, and I will be reading and taking some packing breaks throughout the day, and hopefully by the end of the day I've made some good progress on both. So Kylie did pretty okay with the fireworks for the most part. She was definitely stressed, she was definitely clingy, but this morning she's looking good, she's looking happier, it's quiet. I suspect we'll get some noise again tonight just because it's Saturday, and that's just how my neighborhood tends to roll, but we will enjoy the peace and quiet while we have it. Good morning. It is now Sunday. I know I'm looking rough. I've been packing this morning and it's hot already and it's only 10 a.m. So we're going to leave it where it's at for the moment. My goal for the weekend is to be like 90% done with my packing by the time I leave for work tomorrow. And I'd say I'm about 75% good now. So hopefully tonight I can knock the rest of it out. But in the meantime, I have been getting a lot of reading in. Yesterday, I had a pretty good reading day. I took a break. Lexi from Books with Lexi, her Patreon, we were doing a watch along of Squid Game. So we watched the final 4 episodes yesterday, which was a wild time. And it also gave me an excuse to just sit and crochet and watch TV and hang out with people. And it was a lot of fun. But before that and after that, I did get some reading in, and thankfully my neighborhood didn't go too crazy with the fireworks last night. So we had a pretty good relaxing evening. So the first thing I finished up was indeed The Ghostwriter. And this so far, I think it's my favorite book of the weekend. I think it's probably likely to remain that. It wasn't a perfect read. It's like sitting at a 4 for me. But I really liked the way the author played with narrative in here and the concept of a ghostwriter and what they can uncover about the past and be telling someone's story, but also finding things that aren't true about that story. I liked the way the author gave us kind of interwoven narratives from different perspectives that kind of highlighted what was true, what wasn't. And I think there's just a lot of good things to talk about in here. There are also a lot of trigger warnings, so go into this aware or look up lists or ask me offline because I feel like they are spoilery, but if they happen to be a trigger for you, they are not the easiest things necessarily always to read. So just throwing throwing that out there. And I do like the way this kind of wrapped up. It left a couple of unopened questions surrounding the idea of what's true, what's not, what's known, and what's not. But I think it brought everything to a satisfying conclusion. I think we got enough answers to kind of feel like we know what's going on. And overall, I had a good time with this one. Again, I didn't have an audiobook for this one. So the fact that I managed to keep my attention hooked on this, even with as chaotic as everything in my life at the moment is feeling, I think is all a good sign. And then late last night, to do my nighttime reading, I did finish up Mask of Flies, and it did pick up toward the end in terms of keeping my attention. The horror elements definitely stepped up even more toward the end, and I do like how this wound up resolving. I don't, however, feel like I ever really connected with the characters, and I think if I had been more worried about the characters, I would have been more hooked into the story. So this winds up being a 3-star for me. I think it definitely gets gory. There's a lot of injury, a lot of weirdness. It definitely had elements that I liked. I just, for some reason, there was something about it that I didn't fully engage with, and I can't even really put my finger on exactly what that was. I knocked it off my horror bingo card, and it's one that's been on my TBR for quite a while, so I'm happy to have finally read it. I also made some good progress yesterday in Tombs. I have about 100 pages left in this one, so generally it's going well. I think the medium of this being short stories, some of them, of course, are working better for me than others. I feel like the concepts of them are really interesting, but they feel unfinished, like it was more of a pitch for a larger work in some cases, and it doesn't really come to a satisfying ending. Some of them I really like, so I'm glad to keep going on this one. I definitely will have this finished by the end of the day, I think. And then as I was continuing on packing this morning, I finished up You Belong. And this wasn't a favorite book from Megan Miranda for me. It felt a little bit slow. I liked the direction it took. It took a direction I didn't really expect, but it felt a little repetitive and a little bit like there wasn't enough meat to it for a full novel, in my opinion, personally. I think there were good elements to it. I liked the idea of this mother-daughter relationship, the relationship she has with her daughter's husband. I kind of liked. I'm not 100% sure how I felt about that, but in the end, it felt a little kind of like Mask of Flies, not as much, but I felt a little disconnected from the characters in here. I wasn't sure I was liking them. The family dynamics were a little bit weird and kept me kind of wondering what was going on, and that does get answered. But overall, not a new favorite, but still an engaging read. I think this one's landing at a 3.5. I just finished it like 10 minutes ago, so it's still percolating in my mind a little bit, but that's where we're at with that one. I thought I was further behind than I actually was. The packing and having audiobooks has definitely helped me to kind of focus in. So I have about an hour left of Tombs. Sorry, I'm getting distracted because Kylie's building herself a nest out of some blankets on the floor, as if we're not about to go downstairs. So, I don't know. She's been kind of watching me pack and wonder what's going on. But like I said, I have about 100 pages left in Tombs, which will go very quickly being manga. And then I just need to read Survivor Song today to have successfully speedrun this in the weekend. So this one, I do have the audiobook for it. It's also not very long. It's less than 300 pages. And that is my plan for today. At this point, I just want to go sit downstairs with the fan directly on me and get some iced coffee and start reading for a while. So that is the plan for the rest of the morning, I think, and I will check in with you later. It's early afternoon now on Sunday, and I just had some groceries delivered, got those put away. I've started editing this vlog, which is my main objective to kind of try to make life easier on myself this week, is to edit as I go, which I did not do until this morning. So we're working on that, but I did want to pop in really quickly to give you a midway update on Survivor Song by Paul Tremblay, which is my final full book that I need to read. And so far I'd say I'm liking it. I'm not obsessed with it. I like the idea of this kind of almost zombie-like story. The characters themselves even refer to this as a zombie apocalypse, as the people who are getting sick like zombies, though the medical professionals are being very clear that no, they're not. Basically, this is a rabies outbreak, but it's a very scary form of rabies in the sense that someone who's infected will start to show symptoms within like an hour or two. They start getting ill, and then they begin to want to infect others, and people are infected through saliva, through a bite. We start with our pregnant woman. She is at home while her husband is out getting groceries, getting emergency supplies. She's doing everything she can to keep things basically calm and to keep safe, not making a lot of noise, not creating light or using electronics, because these are things that potentially could grab the attention of infected animals or humans humans, and she's obviously scared of that. She's not prepared for the fact that she's going to be giving birth in a matter of a couple weeks, and this is the world they're now living in, which is scary, and understandably so. So, as we know from the synopsis, things go badly, and her husband winds up dead, and she calls on an old friend who is a doctor to help her out, but she's been bitten, and there's some concern of whether she's infected or not. Obviously, they have vaccines, they have some things to combat this because it's not entirely a new outbreak, it's not a new disease, it is rabies-ish, but it's just scary fast how quickly people come down with it and how quickly they turn and then start infecting others. It seems to be regional. They're kind of in a lockdown. They can't get out of the state where they are because there is a big outbreak there. We see a medical setting for a while, and that doesn't go great. And we're now seeing a little bit more of the outside world for various reasons. And I'm finding it interesting. It reads very quickly, which is nice. I'm not necessarily super hooked on the whole idea of having a baby in the midst of a zombie-ish apocalypse, but I am liking the friendship between these ladies. I'm feeling for this pregnant mom and the fear she's in. She's kind of leaving these notes for her unborn kid if she doesn't make it, and I feel like it is going to be hard-hitting by the end. I do care more about the characters here than I have with some of my other books where I didn't really feel connected. So anyway, that's where we're at with that. I am basically at the halfway point currently. I don't predict this is going to be difficult to finish up tonight. So I am very glad that this readathon pushed me to finally pick this one up. I do need to get to more of Paul Tremblay's backlist. So I will continue on, and I will provide you with what is probably likely my final update later on this afternoon or this evening or tomorrow morning. Who knows? I've given up predicting my schedule anymore. Happy Monday. I did indeed finish up the last of my reading prompts last night, although I'll continue to read some more thrillers and horror this week, I think, in the spirit of Summerween. But for my final updates, I did indeed finish up Tombs and had a good time with the last couple of stories in here. I think they were slightly longer toward the end and a little more fleshed out, which made me happy. I think I'm settling on a 3.5 for this collection. Not my favorite of his, but very much fitting with what I expect from his art style and from the darkness of his stories. Definitely a lot of triggers in here and so forth, but I'm glad that I finally picked this one up. I've picked it up at least for one other readathon, I think maybe even two, and just not gotten to it and returned it to the library. So I'm glad to have finally finished it. And then I did also finish up Survivor Song. And this wasn't a new favorite for me for Paul Tremblay, but I liked the idea of this virus and how it impacted the world. I think the author gave us a good glimpse of what the wider world kind of looked like outside of the fact that we were just following this pregnant woman and her friend and the trauma and everything else that happened from that. We also got a couple side characters who get introduced in here, and I think they were really well done too and were given page time that they needed for us to get to know them and care about them and what happened to them. There are high stakes in this setting and in this world, and a lot of kind of moral questions that come up as to what's right, what's wrong, what obligation do we have to an unborn child and to their mother and to the populace as a whole, and people making mistakes along the way, and all of that was really well done. And I think this one's landing also around 3.5, kind of rounding it to a 4 in this case. And then I thought I'd give you an update. This is a crochet project I've been working on a couple of vlogs, and I don't remember the last time I had worked on it actually, so I can't really point you to which vlog it was in. But basically it was a large granny square that got folded in half. You sew up the sides and then you leave an armhole kind of at the top on both sides, and it's basically made into a big circle that you can then wear. So I made a lot of good progress on it last night after not working on it for a while. This yarn tangles like nobody's business. It's quite annoying. In that regard, I would not make anything with this yarn again, but I think it's going to be very cute when I finish it. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of an update. I still need to do like 1.5 more rounds around the neck to kind of finish off the little border effect here. And then on the arms, I need to do a little bit of a lengthening or at least just a cuff on this. I might leave it as kind of like a half sleeve type of a look to it. But since I have worked on this on a couple of vlogs as I was working on it last night, finishing up some audiobooks, including Survivor Song, I figured I would do an update. So I'm really excited about it, even though it's been a very frustrating project at times, but I'm glad to have kind of the ending in sight. And it's kind of the perfect weight to throw on a summer night because it's not going to be super, super warm, but also it's just kind of pretty. happy. And I'm glad that it is maybe hopefully paying off. So maybe at some point, definitely after vacation, I will finish this and show it off in another vlog. But for now, that is it for my speedrun Summerween. I need to get to work today. I've got 3 work days to go until I'm off on Thursday and on a plane Thursday night. And so excited for everything to come this week, and also nervous about how much I still have to do. Packing, I got to maybe 80% done. I'm feeling fairly confident with that. So we're kind of down to the last minute stuff. Definitely have some errands to run this week before I take off. So I'll get there. The light is at the end of the tunnel. Let me know in the comments below. Have you been participating in Summerween? What are you reading? Or what's on your reading agenda for this week at all? And if you've made it this far and you don't have anything to comment, leave me some sort of Halloween emoji, because unfortunately they don't really make Summerween emojis. So we'll just have to settle with pumpkins and the light. If you could hit that like button below, I would surely appreciate it. And subscribe if you're interested in more of my readathon vlogs, more of my book reviews, and more of my bookish content in general. But for now, I'll leave you here and see you real soon in a new video.